In the midst of all the containment and lockdowns, very unfortunate, can't help, but we thought we will still talk about something at the last Saturday of every month. We want to continue to be in touch, at least in some way or the other. And that's why we thought we will talk something today. And very fortunately, this has been happening, but we didn't realize it till this year. I would say that the World Biodiversity Day and the World Environment Day comes in between the last Saturday of May. So I think future this might be a regular event where we can touch both, because both matters to us in terms of birds. So the World Biodiversity Day is also important. And oh, there's an issue. Malaka Mawa Hinnalu.
No, I can hear you, sir. Maybe
No.
Because
Newton.
Okay. I can hear you, sir.
Right. Okay. So we'll go ahead. Sorry if there are disruptions. We are not. If everybody else mutes, I think the lines will be better. Right. And then so we will have some reflection on the World Biodiversity Day, and then we can talk something on the World Environment Day, because every year we know that the themes will change, and that way we can touch on both themes and understand what is meant by these two themes. So since this is the beginning of that, I thought I will make a basic introduction of biodiversity for many of you all, and then touch on what is restoration as we understand, and where we will go from there onwards. In addition, today we would like to give some very, very groundbreaking information from our program, which Gayomini is doing with Dr. Sampath Seneviratna on the migration of birds using satellite tagging. And then Malaka will also talk to you about the outcome of the Aurudu bird count now. So we have all those. And then the June-April BirdLife magazine, BirdLife, is out. So I will just introduce to you some of the contents therein. And if there are any other questions, we can discuss also about in today's program. So let me go straight into the share screen. I hope you can see the first slide, the IBO one.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So then we proceed from here. We will first look at, as you say, today's talk is going to be, or at least the introduction to, from Biodiversity Day to Environment Day. So let us see why we have a Biodiversity Day. Some of you all may be aware of it, but some may not. So let us look at it. Today, this year's Biodiversity Day falls, or every year the Biodiversity Day falls on the 22nd of May, May for the different years. Now, why is it 22nd May? We will see later. And this year's theme was, we are part of, the theme was as given here, we are part of the solution. So it's a very interesting way of seeing things, but we'll try to reflect as to why we are part of the solution. Right. Why is it that we are having the 22nd of May as the World Biodiversity Day? Goes into the historic documentation and the discussion of the biodiversity. It all started way back in 1981, at the 15th IUCN General Assembly, when people were asking about justice or seeking justice regarding the understanding, which I'm sure everybody knows, that much of the biological diversity that was in the developed countries were being used by the developed countries, and they were making money out of it. There are many examples which all of you all may be aware of, and this is a known fact. So there was a little concern that this is not a good idea in this world, and we should have some sort of compensatory program or some activities that would compensate or at least provide back the custodians of that biological diversity. Now I'm using the word biological diversity as of 1981 because we did not have the word biodiversity at that time. You may be surprised, but that is the reality. But when the discussion started, it was recognized that this is a pretty big subject, and a non-governmental organization, however large it was, like the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, was not going to get anywhere by discussing it, maybe, but by implementation, because of the issue involved is because this is very much a financial concern. So it was handed over to the United Nations, and the United Nations Environment Program took it over, and then they decided that they would try to find a solution. So we know that from 1987, with a council decision, it was taken up as a subject to find a convention, that is some sort of international agreement on how the injustice that was happening to the countries which contain the biological diversity was looked after. And then they appointed ad hoc, you can see, almost 2 years after debating on where and how and what to think about all of that. In 1989, they established an ad hoc working group to come up with the convention background and the details. Then this was renamed as the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee to prepare the conventional document, which is somewhat a legal document, in 91. And that document was adopted on the 22nd of May 1992 at Nairobi, because Nairobi is where the United Nations Environment Program's head office is. That is why it becomes Nairobi. And so it is called the Nairobi Final Act. And why subsequently this was adopted at the Rio Convention of 5th June 1992, where it was open for signatory. Since it was adopted in 92 on 22nd of May, it was agreed that we should celebrate the 22nd of May as the Biodiversity Day. That is how it became. Otherwise, some people were saying, why should not it be on the 5th of June? Because that is the day, or at least that is the within that day, or 4th and 5th of June, was the day in which it was adopted at the convention, Rio Convention, as the Convention on Biological Diversity. I would still say that if you go into the text of the Convention on Biological Diversity, you would still not find the word biodiversity there. You see, the word biodiversity emerged only in 1986. So then let us look at what is biodiversity as a result. We call this a pseudo-cognate. Biodiversity is referred to as a pseudo-cognate. It's not just biodiversity, but any word that has been coined by anybody or any person for a purpose of elaborating something or getting clarity to something or making people understand something. These are referred to in the English text as pseudo-cognate, meaning just words put together. So it was done by a person called Walter Rosen, who, you will be surprised, had absolutely no idea about what biological diversity was, because he was an administrator of the United States Academy of Sciences. And there was this conference in 1986, which he was secretary and leading person to get things organized. When he saw that many of the papers that have came in for discussion had this repeated word of biodiversity, biological diversity all over. And he made a decision We don't know whether he did it in consultation with the rest of the academy science committee or not, but he made the decision apparently to combine the word biological diversity and make it into one word, biodiversity, purely for the purpose of reducing the reprinting paper. And we are told that he even succeeded by doing that, saving something like 25% of the paper cost and so on. So it was a major decision that he did. Of course, there is absolutely no basis, and you will see that is what has happened, because it is the logic that was taken off from the word biological, and then he went and combined the two words, diversity, and made it into biodiversity. Now, unfortunately, the reality also is the fact that getting biodiversity and defining what biodiversity was subsequently clearly recognizes today that the logic has flown out of the word biological diversity also. We'll see that and you will realize it. It's a bit of a strange situation. However, the word biodiversity then became a very popular word, mainly because of Professor O.E. Wilson. So he's an entomologist, and he started using this word and publicizing it. And he first wrote the book on life, and a very interesting publication. And through that, and so many others then started using it, and then it became sort of what we call a fun word. In Sinhala, it will say Kuruharapa Vachanayak Puna. Right? So basically, that is what happened. The Gota Vyaja Vachanayak, biodiversity කියන්නේ එක biological diversity අපි කිව්ව ජීව විවිධත්වය නැත්නම් ජීවීන්ගේ විවිධත්වය කියන එක තිබුණු තත්ත්වය. The most surprising thing you will realize is that it didn't become a scientific word, despite the fact that it was being used in science from 1986 onwards. 1986 ඉඳලා විද්‍යාඥයෝ විද්‍යාවේ දැන් ඊෝ විල්සන් වගේ පුද්ගලයන් යොදුවට ඒක විද්‍යා ලේඛන වෙල. In the publications of science, it didn't appear till 1998. So you can see why it was not part of the convention document. සම්මුතියේ ඒක තිබුණ නැති වෙන්න හේතුව මොකද? ඒක පිළිගත් විද්‍යාත්මක වචනයක් නොවුණු නිසා. ඒ හින්දා තමයි 1992 අපි ජීව විද්‍යා සම්මුතිය අනුමත කරනකොට ඒක එතන තිබෙන්නේ නැත්තේ. අපි ජීව විද්‍යා සම්මුතිය සරල වශයෙන් CBD කියලා, Convention on Biological Diversity කියලා තමයි හඳුන්වන්නේ. Not Convention on Biodiversity as such, because you don't get it there. So you can see, until the words that we coin have acceptance, it just can't become part of legal, or at least pseudo-legal situations like conventions. Anyway, it's a very, very descriptive and a very confusing word when you look at the details of it. ඒකේ විස්තර අරවම බලනකොට නිකන් බොහොම පැටලිලි සහිත බොහොම සංකීර්ණ වචනයක් මේ. සරල ජීව විවිධත්වය කියන එක තේරුම් ගන්න ලේසි. ජීවීන්ගේ විවිධත්වය, the diversity of the organisms. එහෙම තියෙද්දි වචනේ biodiversity කියලා බද්ධ කරලා ඉදිරිපත් කරුවම මේකේ අර්ථණය හුඟක් වෙනස් වුණා. So the core of the problem of defining biodiversity is that it is hard to exclude anything from a concept that is taken so easily to mean everything. මේක සංකල්පයක්. මේක අත්ත වශයෙන් සංකල්පයක් කිව්වම බොහෝ දේවල් ඒකට අඩංගුයි. When you have a concept, so many things are included in it. So that is why biodiversity is everything, like in that sense. And biodiversity therefore equates to the biological diversity. එතකොට අපිට සිංහලෙන් බලන්නකො දැන් සිංහලෙමුත් අපිට මේක ප්‍රශ්නයක් නේ. අපි සිංහලෙන් ජීව විවිධත්වය කියලා පාවිච්චි කරපු වචනේ දැන් එක බද්දයක් වෙනකොට අපිට biodiversity කියන ඉංග්‍රීසි වචනේට සමගාමී සිංහල වචනයක් එදා තිබුණේ නැහැ. So ඒ හින්දා ඒකත් අපි හදාගත්තා ජෛව. ජීව කියන එක ජෛව කරලා විවිධත්වය කිව්ව එක බද්ද වචනයක් හැටියට. මොකද ජීව විවිධත්වය කියන එක බද්ද කරන්න බෑ. ජෛව විවිධත්වය බද්ද කරන්න පුළුවන් කියන මතය මත. එතකොට ජෛව විවිධත්වය වුණා. අපි දැන් ඒක තමයි biodiversity කියන්නේ. So ඉතින් අපි ලියුවොත් biological diversity ජීව විවිධත්වය, biodiversity ජෛව විවිධත්වය. ඉතින් මේ වචන වාග්මාලාවේ තියෙන මේ ලක්ෂණ පාවිච්චි කරලා බලුවට ඒකේ අර්ථණය මොකක්ද? What is the meaning of those words is the more important thing. If not, we won't be able to apply or understand how to do what is needed in terms of the terminology. People will not recognize it. So biodiversity today has all of these very, very interesting aspects. It has the conventional samanya jiva vividatva etana tiyena, biological diversity. It also has all the ideas of conservation, sanrakshani. Within conservation also, there are so many things that you have to understand. And it brought out Elliot Ulupala Genawa the fact of utilization nattam pariharani. You will be clear to understand that. Why? Because the whole dialogue from 1981 was on the issues of utilization. The injustice that was happening in the utilization of the biological diversity. අසූවකේ සාකච්ඡාවේ ඉඳලා ආවේ පරිහරණයේ තියෙන අසමතාවය නැත්නම් විෂමතාවය මත නිසා ඒක ප්‍රධාන අංගයක් මෙතන තිබුණා. නමුත් මේක අවබෝධ කරගන්න බොහෝම අසීරු වුණා. කාලාන්තරයක් තිස්සේ එහාට මෙහාට කට්ටිය කතා කර කර හිටියා. There was no consensus for a long time. When finally the United Nations Environment Program brought together a group of people who were involved in this and who were discussing these things, and I have been involved in this from 1981, and we were involved in this verification of the word sort of situation in 2002. And the publication came out from UNEP, and then that is how we have this very interesting combination. මේ සම්බන්ධතාවය හිටපු කට්ටිය ඔක්කොම එකතු වෙලා එක සාදාගත්තා. Biodiversity gives depth and width to biological diversity. අපි සිංහලෙන් කිව්වොත් එහෙම ජෛව විවිධත්වය ජීව විවිධත්වයේ ගැඹුරු සහ පුළුල් අදහසක් දෙනවා. නැත්නම් පුළුල් භාවයක් පෙන්වුම් කරනවා. So what is the depth of biological diversity? Because biodiversity is the word which is up here, gives depth to this word, biological diversity, which exists, gives width to the word that existed. තිබුණු වචනයට ගැඹුරු සහ පුළුල් අර්ථනයක් ජෛව විවිධත්වය කියන වචනයෙන් දෙනවා. මේක තේරුම් ගත්තම බොහොම පහසු වෙනවා. The depth, එහෙම නැත්නම් ගැඹුර, මේක ඇතුළට ගිහිල්ලා හාරගෙන ගිහිල්ලා තියෙන the depth of the word biodiversity comes from the article 2 of the convention. සමුමුතියේ දෙවෙනි ඡේදයේ තියෙන දෙවෙනි ආටිකල් එකේ තියෙන අදහසෙන් තමයි මේ ගැඹුර එන්නේ. මොකද මේ ඒකේ තියෙන අදහස මෙතන තියෙනවා variability among living organisms from all sources including terrestrial, marine and other aquatic ecosystems and the ecological complexes of which they are part. එතකොට සියලුම ජීවීන් පරිසර පද්ධතීන් මේ හැම එකෙම from all the organisms in all the terrestrial, marine, all the systems that are there is included. This includes මේක ඇතුළත් වෙනවා විවිධත්වය. This includes diversity within species. ජීවීන් තුල අපි species කියන එක විශේෂ නැත්නම් මම කියන්නේ රටා සමයින් කියලා. රටා සමයින් තුල or within species, රටා සමයින් අතර between species and ecosystems, පරිසර පද්ධති. එතකොට මෙන්න මේ කොටස් තුන මේ සම්මුතියේ වචනේ අර්ථනේ දීලා තියෙනවා. මොකද්ද ජෛව විවිධත්වය කියන්නේ කියන එකට. What is biodiversity? In the definition it says variability among living organisms from all sources. හැම අංශයෙන්ම තියෙන ජීවීන් terrestrial, marine and වෙනත් ජලජ පද්ධති and ecological complexes, පරිසර විද්‍යා සංකීර්ණයන්. හරි, පරිසර සංකීර්ණයන් කියන්න බෑ. ඒකට වචනේ තියෙන ප්‍රශ්නයක්. ඒක විසඳගමු පස්සේ. Our part includes within species. ජීවීන් තුල කියන එක හිතුවොත් ජීවීන් අතර between species කියන එක සහ ඔවුන් ජීවත් වෙන පද්ධතීන් තුල නැත්නම් ecosystem. Now what is the depth? How do you see the depth here? Because you come out from the very broad ecosystem. ඉතා පළල් විසිරී ඇති පරිසර පද්ධති වලින් තමයි අපි පටන් ගන්න. මෙතන තමයි මේ ඔක්කොම මේ මිහිතලේ විසිරී ඇති හැම තැනම තියෙන ජීවීන්ගේ විවිධත්වය, all the diversity of the organisms on the planet are distributed on the surface of the planet in these ecosystems. And they are not the same. They are different. ඒවා එක එක තැන්වල diverse. They are diverse. මේවා විවිධයි. So you have the rainforest ecosystem, the open grassland ecosystems, the mountain systems, and water aquatic systems, the marine ecosystems, and so on and so forth. And you can go on and go on. And all of these ecosystems are human defined. We define the ecosystems. අපි තමයි මේ පරිසර පද්ධති වල අර්ථනය දෙන්නේ. ඒක වෙනම විෂය කරුණක් සහ පතයක්. There is only one ecosystem which has a clear, පැහැදිලි සීමාවන් තියෙන boundaries, and that is the biosphere. Ecosystem is equivalent to the biosphere. It's one of the ecosystems, biosphere, ජීව ගෝලය. එහෙම වෙන්නේ බොහොම සරල හේතුවක් නිසා. මොකද ජීවීන් ඉන්න පුළුවන් සීමා දෙක බොහොම පැහැදිලිවම භෞතිකමය ලක්ෂණ මත, because of the physical characters, has been established. So you have no life beyond 10 kilometers into the atmosphere and no life beyond 300 meters into the crust of the earth as of now. So if you don't have life, there's no ecosystem, because of the two components. The primary two components of ecosystem is the biotic and the abiotic component. So the crust of the earth beyond 300 meters contains abiotic but no biotic. 10 kilometers up into the atmosphere and beyond, there is plenty of abiotic, but there is no biotic. And that limit has not been defined by us. It has been defined by nature itself. So all the other ecosystems within the biosphere, Jaiva Golaya Thula, within the biosphere, are all human defined. අපි කියනවා මානව අර්ථනයන් මත සැකසී තියෙන යම් ලක්ෂණ, characters being taken to consideration. So when we say aquatic ecosystem, the word aquatic recognizes the ecosystem. So aquatic කියන්නේ ජලජ, පරිසර පද්ධතිය කිව්වම ජලජ කියන වචනේ ජලය මොකක්ද කියන එක අපි අඳුරනවා. We know what is water, and therefore it defines the ecosystem in terms of it. But where is the limit? It's a very, very complex subject. Anyway, we are not going to go into that today at this moment. Then we go on to the next level. මේ පරිසර පද්ධතිය ඇතුලේ තමයි ඊළඟ අය ඉන්නේ. So that is why we are going inside. අපි නිකන් ඇතුලට යනවා. කාමරයට දැන් කාමරේ තියෙනවා පරිසර පද්ධතිය. කාමරයට අපි ඇතුල් වෙනවා. මේ කාමරයට ඇතුල් වුණාම මේ කාමරය ඇතුලේ එක එක කට්ටිය ඉන්නවා. There are various kinds of organisms in this room. So these are all what we recognize on the basis of our biological species definition. Jiva ratasama සංකල්පයේ මත හඳුනා ගන්නා මේ විවිධ දේවල්. අපි කියමු මේස තියෙනවා, පුටු තියෙනවා, හඳක් තියෙනවා, ෆෑන් තියෙනවා, අරම කොහොම හරි ඔන්න ඔය වගේ එක එක දේවල් තියෙනවා. So that is eva විවිධ නිසා. Because those species are diverse, we call it species diversity. Now each of those species, inside each of the species, එක එක රටා සමයක් තුල ගියාම අපි දකිනවා තවත් විවිධත්වය. That is referred to as the genetic නැත්නම් ජාන විවිධත්වය කියලා කියනවා. දැන් අපි දන්නවා ජීවීන් මූලික වශයෙන් DNA කියන DNA කියන ද්‍රව්‍යයෙන් සැකසීලා තියෙනවා. මේ DNA කියන ද්‍රව්‍ය රසායනයන්ගෙන් සමන්විතයි. They are chemical structures, basically 5 bases which have combined in a multiple ways of connections, which you get a double helix which contains the message of life. ජීවේ පණිවිඩය එතන තියෙන්නේ. කොයි වගේ කෙනෙක්ද, මොන වගේ ලක්ෂණද තියෙන්න ඕන කියන මේ ඔක්කොම උතන තියෙන්නේ. So this is the ultimate thing. දැන් අද අපිට COVID එක ගැන කතා කරුවොත් මේ අපි කතා කරන්නේ RNA කියන එක කියන. Ribonucleic acid කියලා ඒවට කියන්නේ. RNA කියන්නේ මේකේ පණිවිඩකාරය. නැත්නම් වශයෙන්ම DNA සහ RNA කියන වර්ග දෙක තමයි මේ ජීවයේ මූල සංඝටක කියලා හිතුවොත් නිවැරදි. DNA තමයි ජීවයේ අරගෙන යන්නේ, RNA තමයි පණිවිඩ ගෙනියන එක්කෙනා වගේ. එතකොට මේ පණිවිඩ ගෙනියන එක්කෙනාට හිටපැටි තීන්දුව කරනවා මට ඕන දේ මම කරනවා කියලා. එතකොට ඔන්න එතන ගැටලුවක් එනවා. So virus කියන වර්ගයේ ඒගොල්ලොන්ගේ ජීවිකාව කරගෙන යනවා පණිවිඩ ගෙනාට අමතරව. So this is just a rough way out to explain. So that information, so if you consider yourself, අපි ගැන හිතුවොත් පුද්ගලයෙක් හැටියට, you are constituted through the DNA of your parents, 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 parents. ඔයකොම අසින් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන ලක්ෂණ වලින් ගිහිල්ලා අවසානයේට තමාගේ දෙමෝපියන්ගේ ලක්ෂණ තමයි මූලික ප්‍රධානව ප්‍රමුඛතාවය. Because of the dominance of the immediate, you look or you have characters of your immediate parents. But they come to you from this genetic constituent. So, and it is diverse. Make a vivida. And you will realize that the most important element of diversity in terms of the discussion that emanated is not really the ecosystems or the species, but the genetics. Because by manipulating the genetics, we were able to change the characters of the species. We haven't gone to the levels of changing the characters of the ecosystems as such yet, but we have definitely changed the characters of species also, because there are species which are very, very different from what are natural available also. And all that we have done by manipulating the genetics. That is why in 81 this discussion also came to be, right? So this is the most valuable. In fact, take a simple example. Now, since we are all locked down, we all want to eat something, and if you want to eat a very, very tasty mango, now there are two mangoes that are very much in vogue in the market today. One is called TMG or TMC, Tammellavala one, Alfonso, all these words are given to that. And then there is, of course, our classical Hamadamath Tapata Yapaning Hambichi, Colomban Tino. Now, there are in this country 59 varieties of mangoes. Amba varga 59ක් මේ රටේ හොයාගෙන තියෙනවා. නමුත් මේ 59න් අපි කැමතිම එක සමහර අය නම් ඊ අඹ වලට කැමති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. නමුත් සමස්තයේ පොදුවේ යන්නේ කර්ත කොළඹන්. දැන් මේ මෑත කාලේ ඉඳලා TGC කියන ඔය ඇල්ෆොන්සෝ එකට යනවා. එසේ හෝ දැන් ඒක කොහොමද සැකසුනේ? දැන් කර්ත කොළඹන් is a very much a natural variety of the various mangoes that are 59න් එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒකේ රස වෙනස්, ස්වරූපය වෙනස්, පව තියාගන්න පුළුවන්. You can keep it. All of these things are there. How does that happen? That happens because of his genetic character. Now, the so-called Tammellavala or TJC or Alfonso, what have they done? For more than, we are told, for over about 30 years, they experimented, mixed and characters. May අඹවල තියෙන විවිධ ලක්ෂණ මිශ්‍ර කරලා ඒකෙන් ලබාගත් ප්‍රතිඵල. So it's a genetic variant වෙනසක් ඇති කරගත්ත දෙයක්. Now, how you do that? All of that is a big story. I'm not going to do those things today. So what is the width? පළල මොකක්ද? අපි ජීව විද්‍යාව beside biology, in addition to biology, ජීව විද්‍යාවට අමතරව අපි මේ ජීවීන් ගැන විවිධ විදිහට කතා කරනවා. We talk about the lives in very different ways. And it can be a multitude of subject areas. බහුතර විෂය පතයක් මෙතන තියෙනවා. දැන් බලන්න වනජීවි ගැන අපි කතා කරුවා. පරිසර පද්ධති පර්යේෂණ ගැන කතා කරනවා. ජෛව තාක්ෂණය ගැන කතා කරනවා. ජීන් බැංක්ස්, ඥාන බැංකු ගැන කතා කරනවා. ඖෂධ ගැන කතා කරනවා. Pharmaceuticals, forestry, coastal management, ආර්ථිකය ගැන කතා කරනවා. මොකද මේක පටන් ගත්තේ ආර්ථිකයට අදාළව. එතකොට සමතාවයන්, equity, මානව අයිතිවාසිකම්, කෘෂිකර්මය, consumption, පරිභෝජනය, intellectual property rights. May the you must be aware that there is this huge debate on should we not release the intellectual property rights bound from the vaccine so that anybody can prepare it anywhere in the world. The United States is saying yes, we should do it, but then there are others who are saying no, that is not a good idea because it can become a situation for the future when everything comes like this here. So, but why? Because you are trying to meet the intellect. හදාගත්ත පුද්ගලයින්ගේ මානසිය හදාගත්ත පුද්ගලයින්ගේ ඥාණයට ගරු කිරීමක් හැටියට මේ තමයි අපි intellectual property rights කියන එක හදාගෙන තියෙන්නේ. යම් දෙයක් අපි නිර්මාණය කරුවොත් ඒ නිර්මාණ ඥාණය රැකීම සහ ඒකට සුදුසු ආකාරයට අස්වැස්මක් ලබා දීම, compensated accordingly. So some are saying we should take it off for vaccine because it is needed by everybody and therefore don't hold it. Let any country prepare it. Here is the knowledge. Anyway, we can see even indigenous knowledge. දේශීය නැත්නම් සම්ප්‍රදායික දැනුමත් මේ diversity එක ඇතුළට දාලා තියෙනවා. So you can see on the width පළල දිහා බැලුවොත් මේ හැම දෙයක්ම මේකට දාන්න. Biodiversity contains everything. So when you have a theme also saying that we are part of the solution, so everybody is part of the solution. From the legal provisions to the medical provisions to the administrative provisions to the agricultural provisions, and everybody is part of the problem. Therefore, everybody should be part of the solution. That is the theme background, right? So just let's quickly run, considering time frame, let's quickly run through why is biodiversity important. Now, I tried so far to make you understand what is the meaning of the word biodiversity. I'm sure some of you all may have understood, some may have found it confusing, but that is normal. That is not something unusual because that is it. ජෛව විවිධත්වය කියන වචනේ බොහොම සරල අර්ථයක් දෙන දෙයක් නෙවෙයි. බහු අර්ථ බහු දර්ශන තියෙන දෙයක්. So it's a very complicated, බොහොම සංකීර්ණ දෙයක් මේක. ඒ නමුත් මේක දැන් අපි යොදනවා, we are using it, so we must know. And let's look so roughly. Why is it important? Why is biodiversity important? ඍජුවම තියෙන දෙයක් තමයි අපිට මේක යොදා ගන්න හේතුවක් නිසා. Because it's a used product. There are those that we use directly. ඍජුව පාවිච්චි කරන දෙනවා කෑම කනකොට වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Then there are indirect වක්‍රව ලැබෙන ප්‍රයෝජන නැත්නම් පාවිච්චියන් තියෙන යෙදුම් සහ පාවිච්චියන් තියෙනවා. ඒකම විවිධ අගයන් අපිට තියෙනවා. Values that come from with it. මේක තුලින් අපිට විවිධ අගයන් ලැබෙනවා. These values are of course very very subjective. මේ අගයන් හත්ත වශයෙන්ම අනිතිමානී, ඒ කියන්නේ පුද්ගලයන් හිතන විදිහට ඒක වෙනස් වෙනවා. විස්තරයක් කරනවා නම් ඒක subjective කියන්නේ ඒකයි. එක එක්කෙනා එයාට අවශ්‍ය විදිහට ඒක වෙනස් වෙනවා. දැන් මේ රූපයෙන් මම පෙන්වන්න හදන්නේ මේ වගුර, this wetland, for these different people who are listed on the site would mean different things like a local community. දේශීය නැත්නම් ප්‍රජාවකට, සාමාන්‍ය ප්‍රජාවකට මේ වගුරේ තියෙන අගය මොකක්ද? ඒ වගේ what is the value for environment? පරිසර සංවිධානයකට මේ වගුරේ තියෙන වටිනාකම නැත්නම් අගය මොකක්ද? සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම වෙනස් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. It can be completely different. The community might feel that this is needed to be exploited for their benefit, while the environment group might say no, you should not exploit it. This is a very unique thing. It is only found in the world here, so don't do anything. So you can see it can be very confusing. But what are these values? What are the uses that are happening in that perspective? They are basically subjective. ඒවා අනිතිමානී නැත්නම් ඒවා පුද්ගලින්ගේ අදහස් අනුව සිදුවෙන දෙයක්. Then we can see it will vary tremendously. So in 2020 අපි දන්නවා ලෝකයේ ඉන්නවා group of 7 කියලා කට්ටියක්, the G7 people, that is last year, they decided that biodiversity finance and economic and business case for action කියලා document එකක් තිබුණා. Biodiversity finance and economic and business case for action. එතකොට මේ ව්‍යාපාරවලට ජෛව විවිධත්ව මූල්‍යකරණය සහ ආර්ථිකය කියන දේ සම්බන්ධ කරලා තියෙනවා. In it they recognize that ජෛව විවිධත්වයේ තුලින් ලැබෙන පරිසර සේවාවන්, ecological services that come through biodiversity is around $125 to $140 trillion per year, which is about 150% of the current global GDP, කියන්නේ gross domestic product කියන එක. ආර්ථිකයේ නිර්ණායක මිනුම් ලක්ෂණ මේවා. එතකොට පොඩි ගාණක් නෙවෙයි. It's not a small amount. So ජෛව විවිධත්වයේ නිසා පරිසර පද්ධතියකින් අපිට ලැබෙන සේවාව කියන එක මිල කෙරුවොත් ඩොලර් ට්‍රිලියන 125 140ක් විතර වෙනවා වසරකට. මේක සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ලෝකයේ තියෙන ආර්ථික දලදේශීය නිෂ්පාදනයේ වගේ 150 ප්‍රමාණයක් වැඩි. So it's a very very interesting way to see things now because these are being done today in the light of the changing situation. And these values මේ අගයමුත් අපිට ප්‍රධාන වශයෙන් කොටස් දෙකකට දාන්න පුළුවන්. Intrinsic and inherent value කියන එක. ඒ කියන්නේ තමන්ගේ අනන්‍ය තුල තියෙන අගයක්. And අනිත් එක අපි කියනවා extrinsic ඒ කියන්නේ බාහිර හා අභ්‍යන්තර අගයන් කියලා ගත්තත් ඇති මේකට හරි වචනයක් තියෙනවා intrinsic කියන එකට. But inherent ඒ කියන්නේ අභ්‍යන්තරයෙන්ම තියෙන දෙයක්. ඒ නිසා අපි කියනවා මේවා රැකීම අවශ්‍යයි. මේවට අපිට ගාණක් දෙන්න බෑ. මේක බිලියන ගාණක් වුණත් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. මේක මේ තරම් වටිනවා. So that is how we see. We can't really put a value into it, but we know that it is important and therefore we want to keep it. Very often, sometimes things that are in the heritage, උරුමය තුල තියෙන බොහෝ දේවල්, we have this. It's a very difficult way to put it. Sometimes, to be blunt, if I am to be blunt, let me say, we can have these values which are like the beauty of the surrounding. Anybody can put values, but you appreciate it. Take again, a pramane mudalata නොවෙන්න පුළුවන්. So that is what we call intrinsic. න්‍යාස අපි සිංහල වචනේ ටිකක් න්‍යාසාර්ගික අගයන් කියලා කියනවා. න්‍යාසාර්ගික කියන්නේ අභ්‍යන්තරයෙන් තියෙන වචනය. I try to avoid this, but අනිත් එක බාහිර කියන්නේ extrinsic, utilitarian, instrumental කියලා මේ වචන ඉංග්‍රීසියෙන් පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. අදහස් කරන්නේ බාහිර අගයන් ගාන දෙන්න පුළුවන්. You can say rupees and cents or dollars and pounds or whatever it is you can. මේවා බොහොමයක්ම අපිට ලැබෙන්නේ from ecological services. පරිසර සේවාවන් හරහා to humans. ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට මේ පරිසරයේ පද්ධතියේ තියෙන මේ සංඝටකයේ හරහා from the element that is in the nature, from the ecosystems, we get the benefits in terms of currency value which we can add. Recreational value, aesthetic values, economic values, all of these come as these extrinsic බාහිර අගයන් කියලා කියනවා. It is our basis of our existence. Biodiversity is the basis of it's our life support system. අපේ ජීව පදනමයි. ජලයද, වතුරද, all of this, water, all that, the diversity of the plants, microbes, all of this provide that. So let's run through quickly some of these things. So some of the direct use values. මොනවාද? ඍජු පරිහරණ අගයන්. goods කියලා කියනවා. ද්‍රව්‍යමය. අපි එක එක දේවල් තියෙනවා. දැව වෙන්න පුළුවන්, රෙදි වෙන්න පුළුවන්, ආහාර මූලික වශයෙන්. So you can see the varieties of food and all of these things. මේවා ඉතාමත්ම විවිධයි. අපිට විවිධ විවර්ග තියෙනවා. විවිධ ඉරුඟු කනල් මේ වගේ ඒවා දකින්න නැතුව ඇති. මේ දැන් කාලේ ඉන්න කට්ටිය, the people of today, younger generation definitely would not ever know seen Indian corn like this, but they were there. Today everything is yellow. So you have the marine and fresh water with this burning of the expelled ship. You know, there's so much concern about dead fish on the beach line, and the beach line could be damaged and so much of that. So now see, it's a big, massive issue, right? But all that is because of the values that are there. Then building material, paper products and fuel, නොයෙකුත් දැව අවශ්‍යතාවයන්, කඩදාසි නිෂ්පාදනයට ගස් ඕන ඒවා. So all of these are part of the fibers. තන්තුමය. රෙදි වලට අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම අවශ්‍යයි පුළුම් වල වෙන්න පුළුවන් ස්වභාවික දෙයක් හැටියට අපි කෘත්‍රිම දේවල් තියෙනවා. නමුත් naturally these comes from biological diversity. Then there are so many different kinds of industrial products. I just listed some of them here. කර්මාන්ත නිෂ්පාදන ඒවා අතර තියෙනවා. කෝක් කියන එක ගහක ගස් වලින් ගන්න දෙයක් තමයි මේ කෝක් ට්‍රී කියලා කියන්නේ. ඒත් වශයෙන්ම ඊට පස්සේ රබර් කියවෙන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ ජෝජෝබා කියන තෙල් ගන්නෙ ජෝජෝබා ප්ලාන්ට් කියන එකෙන් මේව කරලා. ඒ වගේම I found that this was very interesting. මේ කාමයින් ඩයි කියන එක අපි කියන කුකුල් සායන්, රතු කුකුල් සායන් කියන එක ඇත්ත වශයෙන් මේ ලබා ගන්න කාමයින් කියන ඒ වර්ණකය ලබා ගන්නේ මේ ඉන්සෙක්ට් නැත්නම් මේ කුරුමිනියාව වර්ධනය කරලා හලලා තමයි ගන්න. So මේක ඇහුවට පස්සේ නම් ඉතින් සමහරලා some people might not even look at the carmine dye, but it is used very extensively for so many things. රතු කුකුල් සායන් වල තියෙන්නේ තෝකම තමයි. Anyway, So බෙහෙත් වලට දැන් අද තියෙන COVID-19 මූල ආරම්භයත් මෙතන වෙන්න පුළුවන් කියලා කියනවා. මොකද ආහාරයට මේ වගේ සත්තු තෙත් වෙළඳ පොලෙන් අරගෙන ප්‍රශ්නයක් ආවයි කියලා. So the statistics are all here in terms of it. Then the one that is mostly discussed these days is the ecosystem services. පරිසර සේවාවන් කියන එක, which is a word that existed for a long time. දීර්ඝ කාලයක් මේ වචනේ තිබුණා. නමුත් කවුරුවත් මේක වැඩි ගණනය කරගත්තෙත් නැහැ, අගය කෙරුවෙත් නැහැ. නමුත් දැන් මේවා ඇති වෙන විවිධ පරිසර වෙනස්කම් නිසා මේක දැන් අගය කරගෙන මේක තමයි දැන් අපි රකින්න ඕන කියන තැනට ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. So it regulates our climate, buffer against flooding, filters water, break down waste and recycle nutrients, provide natural resources. මේ වගේ හුඟක් සේවාවන් තියෙනවා. Then water filtration and flood protection. මේකටත් the ecosystems make a service. These are ecosystem services. Wetlands are buffers against flooding. ඒ වගේ තෙත් බිම් ජල රැඳුම් හැටියට ක්‍රියා කරනකොට ඒකෙන් අපිට ආරක්ෂාව ලැබෙනවා. And then the soil and the food and the ඒක තියෙන ජෛව විවිධත්වය. Today again a very interesting situation with the government deciding to ban the import of chemical fertilizer. Ban chemical fertilizer imports. There's a lot of dialogue. People are talking so much about it. Yes, it can be positive, it can be negative, but we know that this is a man-made issue. අපි හදාගත්ත ප්‍රශ්නයක් 1960 ගණන් වල ඉඳලා. We must know how to get out of it, because though we do not really look at it, we are very happy to eat what we get on the plate, and we don't ask the question in the process of getting that food onto the plate, how many people are suffering on the line. ඒක පිටස්තරම කී දෙනෙක් අභාග්‍යයට පත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. We know for a given fact in this country, by this time we know there is actually more than about 50 to 100,000 people who are suffering from kidney, villages totally, and there is apparently more than about 5,000 deaths per year from the kidney acute kidney syndrome situation, which has very clearly connected to the chemical applications in the agriculture system and other combined connectors. But there are so many others which are directly. And why? Because for a very simple thing, we have killed the capacity of the soil to produce the needed nutrients for the plant on one side. We have wanted the plants to give more than what is possible by manipulating the plant. ශාකයෙන් දෙන්න පුළුවන් ප්‍රමාණයට වැඩියෙන් දී ගන්න ශාකය අපි අවශ්‍ය විදිහට විකෘති කරගෙන වෙනස් කරගත්ත නිසා. එතකොට විකෘති කරලා වෙනස් කරපු ශාකය හයිබ්‍රිඩ් කියලා කියනවා, වැඩියෙන් පළ දාන ඒවා කියනවා. ඒක එතනින් නෙවෙයි විතරක් නෙවෙයි, ඒක අර රසායන යෙදුම් වලටත් සම්බන්ධ කෙරුවා. ඒ රසායන යෙදුම් සාමාන්‍ය තත්ත්වයේ තියාගෙන පළදාව වැඩි කරගන්න කෙරුවා නම් ඕක ප්‍රශ්නේ අදට ඉන්නේ නැහැ. නමුත් අපි මේවා කරපු දේවල් අපි මේ හාස්කම් කියලා දකින්නේ. These are of course real science breakthroughs that we have done, but we have not looked at the fallout. මේකෙන් වැටෙන ප්‍රශ්න ගැන අපි මෙච්චර කාල හරියට හිතලා නැහැ. But now it has come to a point that we need to look at it. That is the whole premise of this idea. The soil is capable of looking after itself, so there is a very different movement that is going across the world also. It's not just only in Sri Lanka that we are talking this way, which is called regenerative agriculture. පුනර්ජනනීය කෘෂිකර්මය කියලා එකක් දැන් ඉදිරියට එනවා, where you allow the soil to look after the plant and give the product that you want for the consumption of the people. අදි පරිභෝජනයට නෙවෙයි, ජීව පරිභෝජනයට, ශාකවලට, අපේ නිෂ්පාදන වලට පසේ පුනර්ජනනය හැකියාව පාවිච්චි කරලා පවත්වාගෙන යන්න පුළුවන්. The regenerative capacity of the soil is capable of producing the food that is required for sustaining or sustainable livelihoods, not exuberant livelihoods. So these are all interlinked. Those are good debates to talk about for the future. And there are many indirect use values. වක්‍ර පරිභෝජන අගයන් විශාල ප්‍රමාණයක් තියෙනවා. අපි මේවට සේවාවන් කියනවා. I'm not going to go into the list here. Regulating global processes, soil and water conservation, nutrient recycling, pollination, පරාගණය, පළතුරු ලැබෙන්නේ, පලිබෝධ පාලනය, genetic journal පුස්තකාලයක් හැටියට inspirations for information ස්වභාවයෙන් ලැබෙන අපිට තොරතුරු අනුව අපි කරන දේවල් like biomimicry මේ වගේ කුඟක් දේවල් tourism culture එක්කටම තියෙනවා වායුගෝලයේ තුලණයට අධික ලෙස මේ ජෛව විවිධත්වය ශාක ක්‍රියා කරනවා ඔක්සිජන් එකතු කරන්නත් කාබන් ඩයොක්සයිඩ් අයින් කරන්නත් ශාක කරනවා එතකොට දේශගුණික යාමනයට පැහැදිලිවම අපිට ස්වභාවයේ තියෙන ජෛව විවිධත්වය අවශ්‍යයි. අපි කිව්වාගේ soil and water conservation ශාක සහ ජලය දැන් මේ කලින් කිව්වා වගේ සාමාන්‍ය පසේ the normal soil can look after the nutrient by its decomposable capacity. It's done by microorganisms සුද්‍ර ජීවීන්ගෙන් ඒක කරන්නේ. පරාගණයට පළ ව්‍යාප්තියට then as I said from biomimicry යමක් බලාගෙන ඒක පරිවර්තනය කරලා and of course the diversity විවිධ දේවල් and of course enjoyment through bird watching or things like that. We are even looking for new medical models. අනාගතයට අපි අලුත් මේ වෛද්‍ය ආකෘතීන් හොයනවා. මේ වලහ කොහොමද මාස 3ක් අක්‍රියව ඉන්නේ. මේක හේතු රාශියකට තියෙනවා. දැන් අපි හඳේ යන්න හදනවා, මාස් යන්න හදනවා. We are trying to go to the moon. We are going to try to go to beyond the moon to Mars and all of these places. Then if you can stay without food and anything, wouldn't it be easy to send the fellows all the way there and get them out of that condition at the end of the line? So if the bear can do it, why can't we learn to do it ourselves? This is the question. So we are looking at it in that way and seeing how these models can be broken. And there is a response for these things, for kidney disease, osteoporosis, trauma, all of it. And we know we have a very, very close link with nature. Agamika, Sanskritika, අගයන් අපිට තියෙනවා. එතකොට මේකේ මේ ශ්‍රී මහා බෝධීන් වහන්සේ ඒ වගේම අපි මේ ඊවරේදා දීවාලි සහ වෙනත් දේවල් එක්ක සම්බන්ධ වුණා. Everything is linked with nature in a very, very clear way. It is just that the current generations are delinking themselves from these natural values that we had in our religious and spiritual and cultural systems. That's a different story. But we know we are linked and we appreciate what we see. අපිලා කියන දේ හොඳට අපි අගය කරනවා. The aesthetics, සෞන්දර්යය බොහොම පැහැදිලි. But what is the situation of all of these today? මේ සියලු අගයන් තියෙන මේ සියලු වටිනාකම් තියෙන මේ මිහිතලයේ අපිට ජීවනය දෙන ජෛව විවිධත්වයට මොකද වෙලා තියෙන්නේ? That is what we discussed partly from 1981 in terms of what we were doing. පාවිච්චිය තුළ. නමුත් ක්‍රියාවලියෙන් we have brought it down to a disastrous situation. Wildlife populations have plummeted by 60% since 1970. These are reports from last year. Our living planet at a crossroads. So අපේ ජීව සංඝටක නැත්නම් පද්ධතියේ අතරමැදි තැනකට ඉන්නේ. So these statistics are all there. I won't go into detail. Everything is negative. කිසිම දෙයක් අපිට ධනාත්මක වෙන්න බෑ. හැම එකෙම විශේෂයෙන්ම මේ උවේ ජීවින් කඩා වැටිලා තියෙන ප්‍රමාණය බොහොම භයානකයි. හැම අංශයෙන්ම බැලුවොත් 2007 ඉඳලා තියෙනවා මේ සංඛ්‍යා ලේඛන. You can see the numbers have increased. The threat values have increased in the mammals and all of these things. Endangered, ඒ කියන්නේ තර්ජනයට ලක් වූ ජීවීන්ගේ ප්‍රමාණය end වැඩි වෙලා තියෙනවා. The numbers under endangered species is rising. So it is not a very happy situation. And then boom bang, we had COVID in 2020 March, initiated a little bit in somewhere in 2019, but by March 2020 we were hit by the coronavirus, slap bang on our face. Now we come to realize what a small piece of RNA or a life can do. We still don't have any medicine for these things. Only we can strengthen ourselves to fight against this fellow if he gets into our system through the process of vaccinations. ප්‍රතිජනක ශක්තියක් ඇති කරගන්න පුළුවන්. So මේ ඊයේ පෙරේදා එයින්ද Secretary General of the United Nations said, as we encroach on nature and deplete vital habitats, increasing numbers of species are at risk. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපි මේ කරන ක්‍රියාවලිය ප්‍රතිඵලය නිසා ආක්‍රමණය කරනවා ස්වභාවය එහි සම්පත් හිෂීන කරනවා මේ හේතුව නිසා මේගොල්ලෝ ඔක්කොම අතුරියට ලක් වෙලා තියෙනවා. They have been subject to අවදානම් තත්වයකට පත් කරලා තියෙනවා. That includes humanity and the future we want. මේකට එකතු කරන්න ඕන මානුෂ්‍යත්වය සහ අපිට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන අනාගතය. So you can see that we have come to a very critical state, and if we are to change this, we have to then therefore become part of that solution for change. ඒ වෙනසට එකතු වෙලා විසඳුමට එකතු වෙලා ඉදිරියට යන්න ඕන කියන හේතුව නිසා තමයි මේ අවුරුද්දේ අපිට මේ තේමාව අපිට දීලා තියෙන්නේ. දැන් ගිය අවුරුද්දේ එතකොට එහෙමනම් මොකද්ද මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ? What is the solution? පැහැදිලි, because ගිය අවුරුද්දේ ගත්ත our solutions are in nature කියලාත් ගත්තා. The slogan was chosen to be a continuation of the momentum generated last year under the overarching theme our solutions are in nature. අපිට විසඳුම් තියෙන්නේ මේකට ස්වභාවය තුලයි කියන එකට බද්ධ කරලා තමයි අද අපි අපි මේකේ කොටස්කරුවෝ කියන අදහස ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙනවා. අපි මේකට කියනවා nature based solution. ස්වභාව පදනම් වූ විසඳුම් කියලා විවිධ ආකාරයෙන් මේකට අපිට ලක්ෂණ තියෙනවා. So I will skip that for the moment. එතකොට වාර්තාවක් තුල අපිට මෙන්න මේක තියෙනවා. This is a very interesting thing. I want to read it for you in English. Humanity stands at a crossroad with regard to the legacy it leaves to future generations. Biodiversity is declining at an unprecedented rate, and the pressure driving this decline are intensifying. None of the Aichi biodiversity targets, this is a set of targets that we set in 2010, will be fully met, in turn threatening the achievement of sustainable development goals and undermining efforts to address climate change. The COVID-19 pandemic has further highlighted the importance of the relationship between people and nature, and reminds us all of the profound consequence to our own well-being and survival that can result from continued biodiversity loss and the degradation of ecosystems. එතකොට පරිසර පද්ධති හායනය සහ ජෛව විවිධත්වය වනසීම තුලින් මානව පැවැත්මට අති විශාල තර්ජනයක් තියෙනවා කියන එක මේ අදහස් තුලින් ඉදිරිපත් වෙනවා. But we know that what we are trying to do, what is happening, the efforts are just the tip of the iceberg. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ හිම කුටියේ පොඩි තැනක විතරයි. මොකද අපි දන්නවා මුහුදේ පාවෙන හිම කුටියකින් 9න් එකක් විතරයි අපිට පේන්නේ. 9න් 8ක්ම වතුර යට තියෙන්නේ අපිට පේන්නේ නැහැ කියන එක. ඉතින් මේ වගේ තත්ත්වයක්. We are the first generation to know we are destroying the world. ලෝකේ වනසනවායි කියලා දැනුවත් වෙන පළවෙනිම පරම්පරාව අපි කියලා කියමුණකුත් තියෙනවා. එහෙනම් අපිට මේකට විසඳුම් තියෙනවද? ඒ විසඳුම් විශාල ප්‍රමාණයක් තියෙනවා. නමුත් මෙන්න මේ දේත් හිතට ගත්තොත් හොඳයි කියලා මම හැම වෙලේම ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා. I always bring this up. We have solutions. So yes, given the scale and nature of environment problems, we need new mental models and ways to think to solve them. අලුත් මානව සිතුවිලි අවශ්‍යයි මේ ප්‍රශ්න විසඳ ගන්න. ඒකට හේතුව මොකද? As Albert Einstein had very rightly said some years ago, problems cannot be solved within the mindset that created them. ප්‍රශ්න ඇති කරපු මනස ඉන්න අයට මේ ප්‍රශ්න විසඳන්න බෑ. මොකද ඒගොල්ලෝ ඉස්සෙල්ලා ඒගොල්ලෝ කරපු දේ වැරදි කියලා පිළිගන්න එක බොහොම අසීරු කරුණක්. It's very difficult for those who have created the problem to realize that we are the ones who created the problem. So that is why I think Albert Einstein said this cannot be solved within the mindset that created them. Very, very relevant today. But we have to all recognize that we need to forge a relationship with nature. ස්වභාවයත් එක්ක අපි ගැතිවීමක් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම අවශ්‍යයි. That would ensure sustainability. තිරසාරත්වය ඇති කරවන ක්‍රියාකාරකම් in all its activities aimed at improving the quality of life. ජීව තත්ත්වය වර්ධනය කර ගැනීම සඳහා අපට ස්වභාවයත් එක්ක යම් කිසි සම්බන්ධතාවයක් ඇති කරගන්න ඕන තිරසාරත්වය ලබා ගන්න. This was of course from Harita Lanka of 2012. So it's all there. And that is where we go to ecosystems restoration. Now, all this time it was biodiversity that we discussed. මෙතෙක් මම කතා කරේ ජෛව විවිධත්වයේ ජීව විවිධත්වයේ කියන මේ කන්දරට කතා. නමුත් මේ ජීව විවිධත්වයේ ජෛව විවිධත්වයේ ඉන්නේ කොහෙද? අර පුළුල් තලය තුල, which is the ecosystems පරිසර පද්ධති. ඒ පුළුල් තලයෙන් අපිට ලැබෙන සේවාවන් ගැනත් අපි කතා කරුවා. We discussed and we understood through the biodiversity the services that the ecosystems provide. But when we say that the systems are collapsed, it is equivalent to the biodiversity also being destroyed. මේ දෙකම සමගාමීව go parallel hand in hand. So we should get back the ecosystems to so that we can get back the services that the ecosystems are provided. Now there's a very interesting argument here which are sometimes considered. Why can't we recreate the ecosystems? අපිටයි මේ පරිසර පද්ධති ප්‍රති වර්ධනය කරගන්න බැරි. ප්‍රති සංස්කරණය කරගන්න බැරි. Recreate නැවත ප්‍රති සංස්කරණය කරගන්න. ප්‍රති වර්ධනය කරගන්න බැරි. Recreate the ecosystems. That is where sometimes we come into conflict with nature and human action. මානව ක්‍රියාකාරකම් හා ස්වභාව පද්ධතීන් අතර ගැටුමට එන්න යන්නේ එතනයි. Nature has its own ways of doing things and doing. What we have done so far is not recognizing, not understanding that natural process, but even if we did understand that natural process, we did it for our personal benefit. අපේ පෞද්ගලික වාසියට පමණක් මේ සංකීර්ණත්වය තුල තියෙන ලක්ෂණ හඳුනාගෙන අපිට අවශ්‍ය විදිහට අපි මේක we manipulated it. Now we come to the point, no, this is not going to happen. The destruction is far too much. If we are to change the world for the future, we have to restore the systems. ප්‍රතිවර්ධනය කරගන්න ඕනේ. ප්‍රතිස්ථාපනය කරගන්න නෙවෙයි ප්‍රතිවර්ධනය කරගන්න අවකාශ දෙන්න ඕනේ. පුනර්ජනනයට for regeneration we have to give its opportunity. පුනර්ජනනයට ප්‍රතිස්ථාපනයට නෙවෙයි ප්‍රතිවර්ධනයට අවකාශ දෙන්න ඕනේ. අපිට ප්‍රතිස්ථාපනය කරන්න බෑ පරිසර පද්ධතිය. ස්වභාවිකව අපිට කෘතිමව හදාගන්න පුළුවන්. We tried this by the biosphere program in the United States. Twice we tried and we know we could not achieve the end product. But if we use nature to bring back the destruction that we have, then there is a chance. So that is why the restoration has become a very novel and important thing. And this is not new. The Society for Ecosystems Restoration has been around more than 25-30 years now. And they have been talking about this like for most other conservation agencies. And I have picked a lot from them. It is available for anybody who is interested, can go into the Society for Ecosystems Restoration into the internet and get a lot of information of how to do a good restoration, not a reconstruction. ප්‍රතිව්‍යුහගත කිරීමක් නෙවෙයි, not a ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණය කිරීමක් නෙවෙයි, to restructuring, reconstruction, no, but to allow restoration. So making peace with nature is the defining task of the 21st century. එතකොට අපි ස්වභාවයත් එක්ක ගනුදෙනුවකට එන්න ඕන. මේක තමයි සමාදානයෙන් අනාගතයට යන්න නම් අපි ස්වභාවයත් එක්ක මේ සමාදානය ඇති කරගන්න ඕන. So the World Environment Day therefore has become the Ecosystems Restoration Day and the beginning of the decade. දශකයේ පටන් ගන්න 2021 සිට 2030 දක්වා යන කාලය පරිසර ප්‍රතිවර්ධන නැත්නම් ප්‍රතිස්ථාපන නෙමෙයි ප්‍රතිවර්ධන යුගය බවට Ecosystem Restoration කියන කාලය හැටියට සැලකනවා. ඒ තුල අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ නිතලයේ යථාර්ථයට පත් කරගන්න හැකි වෙයි. We should be able to achieve. So the text that is given here, between now and 2030, the restoration of 350 million hectares of degraded terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems could generate $9 trillion in ecosystem services. එතකොට ට්‍රිලියන 9ක් ඩොලර් ට්‍රිලියන 9ක පරිසර සේවාවන් අපිට මේ මිලියන 350ක් හෙක්ටයාර් ප්‍රති වර්ධනය වෙන්න අවස්ථාව දුන්නොත් restore කරගත්තොත් we can achieve it. Restoration could also remove 13 to 26 gigatons of greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. දේශගුණික විපර්යාසයට ප්‍රධානම හේතුව වෙන හරිතාගාර වායුන් ගිගාටන් 13-26ක් මේ ක්‍රමවේදයෙන් අයින් කරන්න පුළුවන්. ආර්ථික වාසිය මොකක්ද? The economic benefit of such interventions exceed 9 times the cost of investment. ආර්ථික වර්ධනයට කරන ආයෝජනය වගේ 9 ගුණයක් මේ ආයෝජනයෙන් අපිට ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන්. Where inaction is at least 3 times more costlier than restoration. එතකොට මොනවත් නොකර හිටියොත් එහෙම අපිට මේ වගේ තුන්ගුණයකින් හානි වෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. එතකොට මේ වගේ සංඛ්‍යා ලේඛන මේ වගේ දැනුම් by giving this type of information we are trying to make us go forward. So the definition of ecological restoration according to the Society of Ecological Restoration is very clear. Ecological restoration is the process of assisting the recovery of an ecosystem that has been degraded, damaged or destroyed. හායනට ලක් කරපු විනාශ කරපු පද්ධතියක් යථා තත්ත්වයට පරිවර්තනය වීමට උපකාර කිරීම තමයි ecological restoration කියලා අපි කියන්නේ. ඉතින් මේ ක්‍රියාවලියට අවතීර්ණ වීමේ ප්‍රධාන අවස්ථාව මේක තාක්ෂණිකව there are a lot of technical knowledge we don't have the time but the true underpinning principle ප්‍රධාන මූලධර්ම තුනක් තියෙනවා මේකට. ඒ තුන අපි කියනවා effectiveness මේක කාර්යක්ෂම වෙන්න ඕනේ. To achieve the ecosystem services it must be a very effective system. So ecological restoration establishes the maintains an ecosystem's value. එතකොට පරිසර පද්ධතියක අගය පවත්වාගෙන යනවා for various reasons. ඒ සේවාවන් විශාල ප්‍රමාණයක් මෙතන තියෙනවා. මේ පෙන්눔 කරන්න හදන්නේ ඒකයි. ඒවත් සඳහා කාර්යක්ෂමතාවය තියෙනවා. දෙවනුව මේකේ efficiency සමාවෙන්න ඉස්සෙල්ලා අපි කිව්වේ be effective. අපි හරියට දෙයක් කරන්න ඕනේ. කාර්යක්ෂම වෙන්න ඕනේ. කාර්යක්ෂමතාවය අපි කොහොමද මේක කරවන්නේ කියන එක efficiency කියන එක ඒ අතුරින් වෙන්න ඕනේ maximize beneficial outcomes. එතකොට අවසානයේදී අපි ඒකෙන් ලැබෙන්න ඕන ඵලදායීත්වය උපරිමය. එතකොට උපරිමය ඵලදායීත්වය max minimum with the minimum cost යොදන ශක්තිය අඩුවෙන් සම්පත් වල අඩුවෙන් සහ මහන්සිය අඩුවෙන් and effort you should get it in a efficient way. අවසානයේදී ඒක කාර්යක්ෂමව ලබා ගන්න ඕන. කාර්යක්ෂමතාවය කාර්යක්ෂමව ලබා ගැනීමට නම් මේ සේවාවන් වලට අපි දෙන සහාය ඒ වගේම උපරිමයෙන් කිරීම අවශ්‍යයි. මේකට සම්බන්ධ වෙන්න ඕන. You have to engage in it. Ecological restoration collaborates with partners and stakeholders, promotes participation and enhance experience of ecosystems. So this is not a remote way. You have to be actively engaged in it. ඒකේ ක්‍රියාකාරී සම්බන්ධතාවයක් මෙතන තියෙන්න ඕන. So with these three elements in places, you can see there is a transitional change that is required to achieving the full recovery of the system. So then තියෙන යම් කිසි බලපෑම් තියෙනවා නම් ඒ බලපෑම් societal impacts කියන්නේ සමාජ බලපෑම් තියෙනවා නම් you have to reduce them. If there is pollution coming into the wetland or if people are cutting the trees because of the ecosystem or destroying any of those things need to be reduced. Then you have to look at the factor and see how you are going to manage it. මේක කළමනාකරණය කරන්න කොහොමද? So you have to improve the ecosystems management. That ecosystem management might simply mean stopping all of these actions alone and allowing the system to come back to normal in its own way. Or it may involve some of the අපි කියනවා manipulative එහෙම නැත්නම් ඇතුළට ගිහිල්ලා වෙනස්කම් කරන්නත් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. It can be either of it. It can be anything. And then if there are some places which are highly damaged and therefore they say you may have to repair it, which means you have to provide some opportunities like soil conservation systems and planting systems. Some trees sometimes maybe would be worth. Then initiate native recovery. දේශීයව ප්‍රතිස්ථාපනය වීමට ප්‍රතිවර්ධනය වීමට සමාවෙන්න ප්‍රතිවර්ධනය වීමට අවකාශ ලබා දෙන්න ඕන. So sometimes the best recovery for an ecosystem might be to just simply let it be. ඒක එහෙම තියන්න. Some systems definitely it is that and then it will come back to where it is. And then when it is partially in that place you will realize that it is coming back and then the final product is what you are looking for. Fully recovering native ecosystems, දේශීය පද්ධතිය එතන තියෙනවා. Now we don't want to infuse this with what we call outside elements. So you can see there are four primary situations: reduced impacts, remediation, rehabilitation, and restoration. Right? In each of these things there is this remediation. ඒ කියන්නේ යම් කිසි අතුල් වෙලා වෙනස්කම් කිරීම කරන එකක්. ප්‍රතිවර්ධනය කරගන්න අවශ්‍ය කරන දේ තුල ප්‍රතිස්ථාපන ක්‍රියාවලියක් නැත්නම් පුද්ගලීන්ව සමා වෙන්න the nature ස්වභාවය අපි ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණය කරගන්න උත්සාහ කරනවා. And finally you have the ecological restoration, which involves basically these three: initiate native recovery, ස්වභාවයේ තියෙන දේම වෙන්න අවසර දෙන එක, and යම් තැනකට අතරමැදියාවක් තියලා අවසානයේ අවශ්‍ය ප්‍රතිඵලය ලැබෙනවා. So there are 8 under principles also, they say, principles underpinning ecological restoration. One is you have to get people involved. That is what it says. Draw the knowledge, available knowledge. තියෙන දැනුම පාවිච්චි කරන්න ඕන. ඊට පස්සේ everything has to become somewhat native. මොකද the ecosystem that is in one location is not the same ecosystem in another location. කොච්චර අපි මේ ගැන කිව්වත් එක තැනක තියෙන පරිසර පද්ධතිය තව තැනක නෑ. පොදු දේවල් තියෙනවා. There are common factors, but it is very unique to each place. Then recovery, නැවත ඇති කර ගැනීමට අවශ්‍ය කරන උපකාරකය දෙන්න. Then you have clear goals and objectives using measurable indicators, meaning කර හැකි නිර්ණායක අනුව you have to have targets, objectives, අරමුණු සහ highest level of recovery is possible. You have to seek the highest level of recovery. අපි මේ අතරමැදි භාගයට කරන්න නෙවෙයි පූර්ණ වශයෙන් ලබා ගන්න බලා ගන්න ඕන. එතකොට you will see that the cumulative value, gains cumulative, and එකතුවක්. It adds up. The value then and the appreciation adds up, and then finally of the continuous restorative activity, because it is a continuous process. It is not a half-day story. කරලා ඉවරලා දැන් හරි නේද කියලා ඉන්නත් බෑ. Because the threats need to be taken away, and the process of recovery හැදීගෙන එන දෙයට උපකාර කිරීමක් අපිට කරන්න දිගටම අවශ්‍යයි. This is very nicely just this last slide, I think, which is trying to show you what is 2021 and what will be in 2030, right? So that is it, right? So this is the destructed environment system that we have, which needs to get converted. While the buildings and all the ships and the activities are all happening, some things will have to be taken away, like the mining processes like that. But the basic things are there. The agriculture continues, all of this continues, but you can see nature comes back. The whole idea is, right, you see the number of birds have increased. කුරුළු ගාන වැඩි වෙලා තියෙනවා. නැති මාළු විශාල ප්‍රමාණයක් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. පද්ධතිය වෙනස් වෙලා තියෙනවා. මේක තමයි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ. We are looking at this transformation. මේ ප්‍රති කර්මය නැත්නම් වෙනස තමයි අපි මේ දකින්නේ. ඉතින් මේකට අපි කියනවා තිබුණු තත්ත්වය තියෙන ඉස්සරහට තියෙන දේ මේ ඔක්කොම එක එක state of current ecosystem, climate, then restoration action, මේ ඔක්කොම එකතු කරලා අස්සයි 30 වෙනකොට we will have a restored ecosystem. So it's a very interesting initiative, but that initiative therefore requires a lot of engagement and getting together. It can't just happen. It can only happen if we collectively අපි එකතු මේකට අත දුන්නොත් විතරයි වෙන්නේ. So unite and learn to save and share. Basically, this precious planet requires that. Right, we will conclude with that on this first half. Unless you have any specific questions on this matter, any clarifications, because we have enough time for 11 o'clock for the other two elements, and then we can see. So thank you very much. I thought by combining biodiversity and the restoration, because we have a lot of tree planting, we do a lot of things. So tree planting is not restoration, because it is a specific activity within restoration, sometimes yes, but first you have to define your objectives of restoration to tree plant. You can't plant trees and say we are restoring. So if you don't have the restoration plan in front first, you can't basically come to that situation. So you have to see, you have to basically clear yourself of restoration and then travel towards that through a process of nature, understanding nature and manipulating some of the elements. You can accelerate the process, you can decelerate it, or you can diversify it and things like that. Right. Okay, I will conclude with that. If there are any burning questions you all want to ask, please do so. And then we will close this part of the discussion for today and then proceed to the other elements that we have for you. Yes, so you can now moderate it.
Yeah. I'll give a brief update about the bird count, and then we'll go for the migration. Shall we do it like that, sir? Or do you want to? Hello? Can't hear. Hello?
If there are no questions about Biodiversity Day to Environment Day, yes. Yeah, there appears to be no questions. Yes, Malaka. Then we will proceed to the Aurudu bird count.
Actually, in the so on the data entry form, a registration form, there was a question. I think you answered a bit of it through your discussion. The question is, now the farmers have deviated from the olden day cultivation practices of the standard biannual Yala and Maha seasons and are mostly doing an additional third season. What can be the effect of this on our native, and mostly doing an additional third season? What can be the effects of this on our native as well as migratory wetland bird populations? Question by Janaka Kandam.
Okay, it's a good question. It's not just only 3, we are doing 4, and if we can do 5, we will do 5 also. As long as there's water and the soil is there and the climate is fine. These are some of the fundamental problems that we have created that is causing the mess in the environment, because the traditional 2 seasons had very traditional single season. You have to not think of traditional 2 seasons because that is what you know, right? But there was a traditional single season which is linked with nature depending on the climate. දේශගුණයේ තිබුණ ලක්ෂණ වලට අනුකූලව ඇත්ත වශයෙන් තිබුණේ වාර්ෂික එක කන්නයක්. ඒක තමයි මහා කිව්වේ. යල is මේ අතරින් පතරින් කරපු දෙයක් subject to the situation being there. The Yala was very much a ගොඩවගා ක්‍රමයක්. Was very much on the highland. මහාට කෙරුවේ කුඹුරේ. But when you go even further back, you will realize that there was only one paddy cultivation and one highland cultivation. And that highland cultivation was very much which what today people don't like to use the word, but what was correctly a hena, that is the chena cultivation, not slash and burn cultivation. Please don't mix up slash and burn as chena. These are the problems that we are having, right? The hena was a highland cultivation that was done at a very specific time away from the Maha, right? And then, of course, the hena was a very scientific method also, which we have foregone and changed because of the changing requirements and all of these are disasters that we have done as a result. And then we come to the wetland cultivation, which is what is related to the question that was asked with regarding to migrants and things like that. The wetland cultivation of paddy, we had obtained numbers of changes happening because a continuous source of water was available from the reservoirs, been stocking the water during the rains and giving it. So we had a very clear 2 seasons, where now we have 4 seasons because we have a variety that grows and completes in 3 months. So 3 into 4 is 12 months. So when you finish one, why don't you go to the next one? Why don't you go to the next one, and so on? So all these are somewhat issues that the agriculture people also have recognized, and that's why they are saying, do paddy in 1 year, 1 season, do mixed crop and especially what you call these legume crops in the other seasons, so that the soil regenerates. The soil is taken away in some areas like Polonnaruwa, Anuradhapura. The soil is fundamentally holding the plant and not giving anything to the plant because the soil does not contain anything in the plant to give the plant. So you have to put the applications. And that is a disaster because we put applications, 40% of that which has been studied and proven, shown, goes down the drain. And where does it go down the drain? Some of it ends up in the wells and we drink that water, and there you have villages of kidney disease, kidney syndromes, not disease problems, right? And then so many other issues. That is why the time has come really to try and make effort. This was done so many times before. Now, my argument here, of course, is that you don't need any input for agriculture if you really think that the soil can look after the plant and produce what it wants for you. I call this no input agriculture, which was practiced maybe 100 years ago or maybe even 50 years ago, and some areas even today they practice it. The China cultivation system is a no input cultivation system, but we have destroyed that practice by being greedy to produce everything for us. Now, would any of these activities affect the migratory birds, which is the real question? Not really in Sri Lanka. Why I say not really in Sri Lanka is that the majority of our migrants, which are waders, don't come onto the paddy fields as such. There are few that do come, but the majority don't come into the paddy field as such. Many of the, I would say something in the magnitude of even 95% of the waders use the lagoon systems that are abundantly available around the country and some of the drawdown areas of the reservoirs. So they really don't come into the paddy fields, and because even if they come, it can only be for a very small season. And in that season, if we have the mud flats in the situation of changing the cultivation, they would come, do come in areas like Boondala, Putlam, all of these areas, we have seen it. But then that is happening when they are here. And when that is overgrowing and when the paddy grows, they will definitely shift. Increasing that cultivation practice would not change the habit of the bird. So simply because there's going to be a transitional mudflat again, because you change the cultivation, doesn't mean that the bird is going to stay back for that small period of time, because that period of time, if you think in a paddy cultivation, is not more than half a month. Because the wheat would have grown, the rice would have grown up, and then that mudflat would have gone, and then the waders don't have it. And the forest migrants anyway will not settle on the mud now. For them, the forest is required. So there we have to think of, if we continue to destroy the forest, would it affect the migrant coming? Yes, it can. Because then they get displaced and then they don't have a place to stay. They of course can be using the available habitats, subject to that available habitat providing the basic requirements to them. So cultivation practices, increasing the cultivation practices will not, I would say, directly affect at a magnitude of concern, but yes, a little bit, but that is not going to be a major impact factor. There are two other questions being asked, or at least one. Bahanuka has, who declares these days? These days are declared by the United Nations Secretariat. You have the groups like UNEP will declare the United Nations Environment Program, declares the Environment Day, and then the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity, which is in Montreal, they will declare the World Biodiversity Day. But these have been all declared in advance and put into the calendar of the United Nations. So you have, sometimes you have in one day so many other things, but fundamentally we have all these things being declared by the UN system. Yeah, that is the only two real questions in the chat box. Okay, Malak, I think we can then proceed to the Urdu bird count summary and then to Gayam.
I'll go through quickly because we experience heavy wind which disrupts internet connection time to time in our area. Okay, so right. So we had our bird count this year as well. Can you see the screen?
Yes, possible. Can see.
Okay, right. So yeah, so this is out of the bird count. We did it in the April. So I'll go through this mode because it's automated. The mode. Okay, so since there may be new people who are participating today's meeting, I'll briefly explain what is why our bird count as well. So අවුරුදු ඔගොල්ලෝ හැමෝම දන්නවා අවුරුද්ද කියන්නේ ලංකාවේ තියෙන මේන් ප්‍රධානම සංස්කෘතික උත්සවය අංගය. ඒ වගේම ඒකේ විශේෂයෙන්ම මේ කුරුල්ලෙක් තමයි අපේ ඒකේ අවුරුද්දේ මැසෙන්ජර් විදියට ඉන්නේ. කොහාගෙන ආදී තමයි ගොඩක් වෙලාවට සලකන්නේ අවුරුදු කාලේ උදාව සනිටුහන් කරන්න. ඒ වගේම අවුරුද්ද කියන්නේ ගොඩක් නිවාඩු හම්බ වෙනවා, ඉස්කෝලේ නිවාඩුයි. ඊට පස්සේ කට්ටියට එක එක තැනක් ගමනාගමන යන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ කාලේ නම් සංචරණ සීමාව ඇතුලේ ගෙදර හරි ඉන්න ගොඩක් අවස්ථාව ලැබෙනවා. ඒ කියන්නේ අඩු ගානේ ගෙවත්තට එන කුරුල්ලෝ හරි බලන අවස්ථාව ලැබෙනවා. So that's why we selected the month of April. There are a lot of holidays, and also month of April or Aurudhu season special because the Aurudhu Poha or the Asian quail is considered as the harbinger of or the messenger of the Aurudhu season. So we put aims of Aurudhu bird count, which are shortenedly known as ABC 2021 of this year's version. So we create it as a citizen science program because participants can enter their observations, and these observations will be there in the system, in the eBird system, which is a bird record. We can collect these records through the eBird. Also, we need to use this as an opportunity to encourage bird watchers to keep records. It's important, it's important because we watch birds, but often we forget to note down. But if you share it with others, and if you have a record of it, it can be useful even scientifically. So, and of course, we wanted to use this as an opportunity to popularize bird watching in Sri Lanka. So we used eBird. So if hope most of you are now familiar with what is eBird. eBird is it's a record keeping platform. You can enter your observations. So ABC 2021, that was held from 1st of April to 30th of April. Throughout the month of April, participants could observe birds and enter their observations to eBird, ebird.org, and then share this observation through a specific eBird profile called ABC 2021, which we created to collect the data. So these checklists were collected and been analyzed. So this is the summary of ABC. We received 404 checklists from different parts of Sri Lanka, and these checklist records recorded 268 bird species, and there were about 40 participants who contributed. Some of them actually contributed a lot of checklists, maybe 20, 30 checklists from different areas, and there were a lot of checklists from home gardens. The common birds are especially also important. So we also especially encouraged people to enter, do observations at least at their own home gardens because of the importance of having common birds observations as well. So this shows the intensity of the number of species and checklists from different region wise. South and west have a lot of checklist, and southern province and had the most number of species recorded. So, and species wise, these are the 30 most abundantly recorded species. So you can see the red-vented bulbul tops the list, followed by spotted dove, the Asian quail, and then the ringneck parakeet, common myna, yellow-billed babbler or demelicha, then house crow, white-throated kingfisher, brown-headed barbet, common tailor bird, oriental magpie robin, cattle egret, Indian pond heron, black-footed oriole, white-bellied drongo, the feral pigeon, likewise. So this indicates there are the considerable number of records would be from the home gardens because these are mainly the common garden birds being recorded here, and there are some special records as well because if you see the 25th place is green imperial pigeon. Green imperial pigeon seems to be showing a lot of distribution in recent years, so this is also being highlighted. And then Indian peafowl was recorded in the 27th position, again indicating their distribution, maybe indicating their distribution in the country. So this is the graph showing their numbers. So that's this is the brief, simple analysis or the summary of ABC 2021. We'll try to publish a small paper based on this, so that it will be recorded scientifically, and we plan to continue this in next year as well. So next year, and then continue annually, make it annual event, so we can have it. Anybody can compare their own records, and we can also have make it compare annually. So that's the brief about the ABC 2020. I'd like to ask you to try to use eBird as much as possible. ඔගොල්ලන්ට කවම කාට හරි ප්‍රශ්නයක් එහෙම තියෙනවා නම් eBird පාවිච්චි කිරීම ගැන මොනවා හරි ටෙක්නිකල් ඉෂුව එකක් තාක්ෂණික ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඒ වගේ එකක් තියෙනවා නම් අපි කාට හරි යොමු කරන්න. එතකොට අපි උදව් කරන්න ඔයගොල්ලන්ට පාවිච්චි කරන්න. eBird පාවිච්චි කරන එක මෙච්චර අමාරු දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. ඒක ඇත්තටම අපි ඉස්සර කරේ ෆීල්ඩ් නෝට්බුක් එක ලියා ගන්න එක. ෆීල්ඩ් නෝට්බුක් එක තාමත් වැදගත් ඒවා එකක් කරන එක. මේ ඉබට ඊට අමතරව දැන් eBird වගේ එක data දැම්මහම ඕන කෙනෙක්ට බලන්නත් පුළුවන්. ඒක ඇනලයිස් කරන්න මේ ලේසි. ඒ වගේම තමයි ඔයගොල්ලන්ට අඳුරන්න නැති කුරුල්ලෙක් එහෙම හම්බුනොත් ඔයගොල්ලන්ට පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන් Merlin app එක. අපි මීට මාස කිහිපයකට කලින් Progress AGM එක දවසදී launch කරා ශ්‍රී ලංකාවට විශේෂ pack එකක්. ඒකෙදි ඇත්තටම ඒකේ විශේෂ වාසි තියෙනවා ඔයගොල්ලොත් ඒක ඩවුන්ලෝඩ් කරලා ස්මාර්ට්ෆෝන් එකකට ඩවුන්ලෝඩ් කරලා ඒක පාවිච්චි කරන්න බලන්න. එතකොට ඇත්තටම සාමාන්‍යයෙන් අපිට ෆීල්ඩ් බර්ඩ් ගයිඩ් එක බලන්න පුළුවන් කුරුල්ලොන් විතරයි ගොඩක් රට මේ කම්පෙයාර් කරන්න පුළුවන්. බට් මේක ගත්තොත් මර්ලින් එකේ බර්ඩ් සවුන්ඩ් උනත් අපිට අහන්න පුළුවන්. එතකොට දැන් අපිට මේ ෆීල්ඩ් බර්ඩ් ගයිඩ් එකක් අවශ්‍යතාවය ඇත්තටම ඒක මේ තාමත් ෆීල්ඩ් බර්ඩ් ගයිඩ් එකක් අවශ්‍යයි. බට් මර්ලින් වගේ software එකකින් ඊට එහා ගිහිල්ලා අපිට දැන් බර්ඩ් සවුන්ඩ් එක වුණත් මේකෙන් කම්පෙයාර් කරන්න අපි දන්න කුරුල්ලක සද්දයක් ආවොත් ඒක කම්පෙයාර් කරන්න ඒක පුළුවන්. ඉතින් මම ආරාධනා කරනවා මේ eBird මර්ලින් වගේ ඒවත් දිගටම පාවිච්චි කරන්න කියලා. අපිට ප්‍රශ්නයක් එහෙම තියෙනවා නම් අපි මේ අපිට යොමු කරන්න අපි පුළුවන් තරම් උදව් කරන්න ඒවා sort out කරගන්න. ඒ ටික තමයි අවුරුදු බර්ඩ් කවුන්ට් එක ගැන තියෙන්නේ. අපි ගායමනි
Yeah, okay, good, Malaka. You just said we'll try to get a publication done and also send it to eBird, because they must know that we are doing these things and show them that what we are doing. And the other, what I was going to say is to Dr. Sampath, and Gayamini is also here now. Sampath is, I think, out in the field. Is that we should develop a small news item out of all of these things and send it to BirdLife publication, so that they realize that we are doing things slightly different from others in the world. Right, so we will go to Gayamini. Gayamini දෙන්න වෙයි මම දැන් කොහමද මාලක එක
ගායමනි පුළුවන්.
Yeah, screen. Okay. Just a minute, Malaka.
Yeah, let me just initiate it for you. මේ කාලේ වෙනකන් මාලක will in the meantime contact him. පහුගිය කාලේ අපි විශාල වැඩසටහනක් කෙරුවා ගායමනියේ ඩොක්ටර් සම්පත් මූලික වෙලා කරන මේ මන්නාරම් ප්‍රදේශයේ සහ ලංකාවේ වෙනත් තැන්වල අපිට මේ සහයෝගිතා සම්බන්ධතා වැඩසටහනක් යටතේ චීනයේ විද්‍යා සංගමය සමග සහ ටෝකියෝ සිමෙන්ට් ආයතනයෙන් උපකාරය ඇතුව අපි මේ කුරුල්ලන්ට සැටලයිට් ටැග් එකක් දාන්න උත්සාහ කරලා ඒක සාර්ථකව කරගෙන යනවා. දැන් ඒකේ වර්තමාන තත්ත්වය මොකද මේක ටිකක් වැදගත් නිසා මම ගායමනිට කියන්නේ නිකන් පෙන්නුමක් දෙන්න අපිට මොකද වෙලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා. වැදගත් වෙන්නේ මොකද අපි මෙච්චර කාලයක් තිස්සේ කුරුල්ල මෙහෙන් එනවා ආහාරෙන් එනවා මෙහෙමයි යන්නේ ආහාරෙම කියන එක අපි කියනවා බක්‍ර සාක්ෂි මත පදනම් කරගෙන තමයි දුන්නේ. අපි ඒවට ඉංග්‍රීසියෙන් කියනවා anecdotal evidence කියලා. නමුත් now I think we are at a point where the anecdote can become clear definitive evidence. ඒ කියන්නේ සාහිතික සාක්ෂි බවට පරිවර්තනය කරගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒත් ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා because people can say ඉතින් මේක මෙයාට විතරනේ අනිත් අයත් එහෙම වෙනවාද කියලා අහන්න පුළුවන්. That is a normal thing in science, but at least we are deciphering. අපි මේක පොඩ we are deciphering the issue and definitely over time we will get to the final answer of confidence. විශ්වාසවන්තතාවට හැම කුරුල්ලම් මේ විදිහට තමයි හැසිරෙන්නේ කියන තැනට යන්න ඉතින් එක එක පටන් ගන්න ඕනේ. ඒකේ මූලාරම්භයක් හැටියට මේක අපි පටන් ගත්තා ගායමනියාගේ පශ්චාත් උපාධියට කරන කාර්යයක්. ඒ නිසා දල වශයෙන් මේ කොහෙද යන්නේ කියන එක වෙලා තියෙන දෙයක් මේ පහුගිය කාලේ ඒක පොඩ්ඩක් දැනුවත් කරන්න අවස්ථාව දෙනවා. ඔව් ගායමනි.
Okay, sir. Still it doesn't allow to share my screen.
Malaka, you have to Gayamani the screen.
I think my computer is stuck. All right, here it comes. Can you see the screen, sir? For some reason, my webcam does not work, so I cannot turn on my video. So I'll have to go like this.
අපිට පේනවා මේ screen එක, we can see it.
Okay, I'm going full screen.
Okay, now it's
Right.
okay.
Okay. So thank you, sir, Malakai, for giving me the chance. So here I am to talk about, actually give you an update about our the latest update on our satellite tagging program in Nana. So the ones who were in our last monthly talk that I already mentioned that our birds have started moving north. And so this here in this presentation, I will show you how they have proceeded during the span of last month, during May actually. So actually, the month May was a very exciting time for every one of us in Professor because it surprised us to see that some of our birds have moved all the way up to Arctic tundra here, and some of them are in northern Russia at the moment. And was a really exciting time. And let me tell you the story of their journeys step by step, and what interesting things we found during the span of the last month. So Sir briefed about our satellite tagging program, and you all know, almost all of you know about it and why we do it. I'll just tell you the main aims of us. We are trying to characterize the lead study Central Asian Highway, and to determine Sri Lanka's role in it, which is the southernmost destination of it. And you know that we started deploying the satellite trackers last year, and we will be continuing to the next year as well. And this shows you some of the tagged individuals so far. We have tagged 12 different species. And moving on to the latest updates, you know all about the stories of the crab plovers, red shanks, etc. So I'm not going to talk about those, but I'll just move on to the ones, the most exciting ones, and the birds who moved north throughout the last month. So if you remember, we have tagged a few green skulls, and I mentioned during the last talk that they just started moving north, and now another month has passed, and they are almost there in northern Russia. And to talk about the Hughley's gull, this was a quite interesting species. Hughley's gull, the Larus fuscus hughley, this is considered a subspecies of the lesser black-back gull. And the lesser black-back gull, lesser black-back gull has few subspecies who breeds along the stretch of northern Eurasia. Just a second. Okay, I was trying to show you that this is the breeding range of the hughley, Larus fuscus hughley, that they are known to breed from the Kola Peninsula to Teniya Peninsula right here in this stretch. And the thing is, the fuscus gulls that visit Sri Lanka, even though we consider the majority consists of the hughley gulls, we know that there are another subspecies of fuscus gulls visiting us. That we have records of steppe gull last year, that is Larus fuscus varabensis that breeds right here. And so we cannot say that all of the fuscus gulls that visiting us are hugleys. There are possibilities of other subspecies visiting us. That's why this tracking is tracking has another importance to know exactly which subspecies are visiting Sri Lanka, and we hope to track them back to their breeding grounds, and then we'll be able to see from exactly where they came. Telling you about the journey of this tag gull step by step. Yeah, let me start from the other side. This is the Talenana, the place that we tag those gulls. So from out of the tagged gulls here, one of them moved north right away after it was being tagged. The very next day it moved north across Rama's Bridge, but one hanged around a little bit more, a couple more weeks actually. So it interestingly stayed in the Indian side of Rama's Bridge in the night. Every day it visited the coast of Mana, sometimes to Udumale, sometimes to Thalaimana, sometimes went to further down to Pesala and Kodaveli. So always traveled back and forth. Actually, it traveled between India and Sri Lanka. Political boundaries are considered. And then after 2 weeks, and this one right away, moved across the Rama's Bridge to hop into India. And it arrived in Dhanushkodi, the Indian end of Rama's Bridge here, and then went to southeastern India, and then it hops to the west coast. Traveling up along the west coast, up to Gujarat, it was traveling along the coast so far, and then it started moving north overland from starting from Pakistan. It entered Pakistan and then entered into the Afghanistan. You know that it crossed all over the mountains, high mountains in Afghanistan. Then entered eastern Turkmenistan, then the Uzbekistan, and then Kazakhstan. It was traveling all the countries of Central Asia. In Kazakhstan, actually, it arrived in Kazakhstan exactly on the World Migratory Bird Day, and we informed our BirdLife partner there, and they were quite excited. Then from Kazakhstan, this is the Aral Sea. It goes by the Aral Sea, and then it slowly go north, and finally entered Russia, the country where it breeds. And from Russia, from south here, it entered Western Siberia, and somewhere they are in somewhere in northern Russia at the moment. So from here to here, during the span of last 2 months, it had traveled a distance of 9,500 kilometers from its tropical paradise in Sri Lanka to Arctic tundra here. And okay, it shows its movement to Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, and to Russia. And now this is where it is. This is not Russia. You can see that there are many lakes. It's totally a swampy area. These lakes are frozen in the winter, and now only they are available to use for these gulls. And it was moving among these lakes frequently. And maybe if I get a chance to meet you again in a month, I think I'll be able to tell you where exactly it ended up, where this breeding origin is going to be. And we are looking forward to that. And moving further to the tagged ducks, this is about the Vigen's migratory journey. Actually, before moving to tell you about their northward migration, I think it's important to show you that how it helped us to understand how the ducks use the local wetlands in Mana and actually in northern Sri Lanka. So it was interesting to see how they moved between the wetlands, and we could see that they use actually a chain of wetlands for different activities, and some they use for roosting, and we could actually discover some unknown night roosts as well, and they were moving back and forth from these night roosts to their foraging grounds here in Mana, Kale, and very collective areas, and some areas that we saw highly threatened and even not properly protected. And these findings again emphasize the importance of safeguarding not just one or two wetlands, but the whole linkage, whole chain of networks in Mana. And then moving on to the northward journey, it should be mentioned that now the gulls, you saw that they utilize Rama's Bridge to hop into India. But unlike the gulls, these ducks use Jaffna Peninsula to travel to India. So this is their northward journey across northern Sri Lanka. So from Mana, they went to Iranathi Island, and they stopped over. All our ducks stopped over in Iranathi for a short period, and also our tagged shorebirds paid frequent visits to Iranathi Island, and it shows its importance for migration. And then it went to kites in Jaffna Peninsula, and they stayed a couple weeks in Jaffna Peninsula, moving between Kites, Java, Kacheri area, and then it also went to India. And one is this is the male actually, so it went to central India and somewhere in east central India right now. And this is a female. Female traveled up straight, and it's almost there in northern India. It's in Pradesh now. And these birds, we could see that for a few weeks, the birds have stopped over right here. I think that they are refueling, packing up. Because now here is the Himalayas. In order to go to their breeding grounds in Siberia, it has to cross the Himalayas. Maybe they are getting ready for this arduous journey. They have to climb up thousands of kilometers if they are to cross the Himalayas. Even from the lowest available pass, they have to climb up between 3,000 to 4,000 meters. So they have stopped over here at the moment. And within a couple of weeks, they will also cross the Himalayas and then go to Siberia. So these are the things, these are the journeys of our birds during May. I'll be able to continue the rest of the story maybe in the next month or two. I'll be wrapping up, but before that, on behalf of FOGSL, I want to acknowledge our partners, the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and then the Wildlife Department of Sri Lanka, and our funding partners in Yanam of Tokyo Cement and the Palmer House Private Limited and Wild Resort in Manila. So I thank them all, and thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I'll be wrapping up my presentation. Yes, if you have any questions, you can ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Gayamani. So if there are any questions, please do ask her. As she said, it is an ongoing story. We will just keep you informed as we go along. Many of the anecdotal pathways are gradually becoming definitive, and that is very good for us because that will give us better understanding of the migration and the migrant birds' desire needs. There was a question asked here. I saw something about chami. Usually, how many days they take for 9,000 kilometer journey?
Yes.
How many days?
Actually, they departed Sri Lanka in early April, but you know that they stopped at some locations. They stop for, they don't directly fly. So for now, starting from early April, now they are almost 2 months have gone. And they are almost there in their breeding destination. So far, this for 9,000 kilometers, it took 2 months. But I again tell you that they don't fly directly. For some, at some points, they stop for like a week, and sometimes for 3 to 4 days, likewise. So another question, sir, generally how many days they stop temporarily in one location until go to the destination? Yeah, sometimes we could see that the ducks pass 2 to 3 weeks in one place. So it depends from species to species, sometimes, from individual to individual as well.
This also tells you, this is what we are saying. We are talking from one bird to try to generalize it for a million number of birds is not that easy, but it is giving us step by step some idea. Will it stay for 1 month or 1 week, or will it fly directly, or the shortest bursts, or whatever it is. Gradually we will come there. So this is the very beginning, but it is fitting in with the information that is available across the world. You know, there are some that will take a burst across because there's no other option. You can't land on the sea or some places, but others will take the step-by-step process, build up your energy, have a nice buffet, and spend some time, and then go on the next journey. So let's see as we go. Let's hope that we can continue this process into the future, and then we will know much better with the other birds also. You know, this is we are doing now with the bigger birds and the capable birds, but we have to see how we can proceed with the other birds also.
Yes, I forgot to mention that we got the new set of trackers. So this time we have got much more smaller tracks that weighs around 4 grams. So next migratory season, we'll be able to target much more smaller species.
Yes, so that's why I say, gradually we will start
Yeah.
building up our pictures over time. But what is the scientific reason of bird migration? Well, that is, well, we did this many times, but to summarize it, it is the changing climate or changing weather actually in the areas that they reside, and they look for an opportunity to go somewhere else and find their food. So there is what is called the northern migratory theory and the southern migratory theory. The northern migratory theory means that with the glaciation, the habitats that the birds originated in the north, the glaciation resulted in them getting pushed to the south. And when the deglaciation happened, the birds went back, and this became a regular thing because when the cold comes into the north, they come to the south and go back. And there are a lot of many other factors like breeding time and predatory pressure and things like that. And your home ground is much better than the alien ground because the tropics have a lot of predators. In your home ground, you don't have such large numbers, and you have plenty of time. The daytime is very high when you go there for spring, almost like 18 sometimes. If you're close to the polar areas, it's almost like 24 hours daylight. And so you can bring up your chicks much easier with so much time available to bring the food to feed them in the shortest possible time. But that does not mean that migration is all north-south. So there is south-north also. In the same way from Australia, birds come up and go. And then there is the east-west also somewhat. And then there are altitudinal migrations. These are all triggered by fundamental factors of weather changes, which affect the food availability and the conditions. So they seek to find the best condition to live. So that's why it is. If there are no other questions, I think we have just about a couple of minutes. I just want to, I think we will skip that for today, but maybe we'll prepare the document for you. I just want to show you this. This is the BirdLife magazine for April, June, which just came last week. So that's why I thought we'll send it. There's a lot of articles on this for on migration. In fact, you can receive this by becoming a member of it. What we can do is, I think we will put those information, Malaka, into the FOG website when we are going to update it. And then those who desire to get it from BirdLife, they can get it directly. If not, in future, for every, when the magazine comes, that's what I thought, we will make some short summary of the contents. I hope to do it yesterday, but I couldn't scan some of these things. So maybe we will give it next time and look at. There's a lot of interesting information now about migration. So I think we should also send a small note, which I told Dr. Sampath Gayomini, try to make a popular event note to the BirdLife people, so that because the more we publicize our efforts, the chances that we will get funded more for the future.
Okay, sir.
There's one last question. How many bird species have you tagged so far, and how many birds of the same species do you generally tag?
Yes, so we have tagged, as I mentioned, we have tagged 12 species so far. We'll be approaching more species in the next migratory season. Actually, we try to tag at least 5 individuals from each species, which will help us to generalize the migratory patterns to the whole population. Yes.
Yeah, so that's the answer. Generally, we try to tag at least 5 individuals from each species that are migratory, because you need some information that is valid, and because there's variation, you saw that already. So we have to ensure that the variations are all covered. The more the better. You see, at the end of the day, to confirm what is required is as many information data sets as possible, because the variations are as high as what we know. So we need to narrow down the variations, and that can only be done by larger data sets. So at the moment, you know, it is not easy, it's costly. We are thankful to the Chinese Academy of Science for providing all of these things, and Mr. Nyanam for providing the opportunity. But we need to think of it for the future also. Right, I think we'll look at these, how many birds have you tagged? So, all right, there's one other question and we will call it a day at 11 o'clock. What is the biggest threat to migratory birds? Well, it depends on what bird you're looking at. If you're looking at the wetland birds, the biggest threat is the loss of wetlands. Across the world, everywhere it is that, so much so even in Sri Lanka. And this is also one of the good ways of properly recognizing wetland use. And some of that data is coming out from Gayamani's work in Mana area. But we need to know because from our ringing work, and now we have the flagging also, from the ringing work, we have established the site tenacity, that is the attachment to a site by migratory species, which means that they keep coming back to the same wetland over and over again. So that is important, therefore. So to keep that wetland is then therefore becoming a massive task against the encroachment or the conversion and all of these things. So it gives us strength to conserve the birds when you have good solid data, because birds are not individually identifiable. You can't identify the birds individually. The only way you can do that is by marking them. And if you want a mark that is going to last, it must be something that is going to be there. That is the ring that has been recognized, but it should not affect its life, its activities. So these are all taken into consideration when you make a tag or when you make a flagging process and things like that. These are all done well. We don't just do it for the sake of doing it for information, but we have to ensure that what we do will not harm the bird in any way and things like that. So this is the background. So the biggest threat for the migrations is the loss of habitats. There is also, of course, I will just read to you, since you just asked it, it is in this news item which came out, which is a very interesting thing, because we are very fortunate in Sri Lanka. We don't have this type of situation. But if you think of it in Europe, you will see that the biggest threat to the birds in Europe is the situation of birds being captured. I will just read to you. Bird saving mission in Lebanon, right? And there is a similar thing in others. I was going the first, this person, we reached the village of Baraj near Lebanon, and you see, sorry, wait, I think, no, that's, yeah, so she goes to say, the only 2 hours of patrolling, we uncovered 6 active trapping sites and calling devices that are used as lures. We reported the finding to the internal security forces, who immediately mobilized and showed up on site. The support of the ISF was much needed, as we could dismantle any mist nets without them. The incredible number of animals were trapped in the nets, moths, butterflies, and birds. You see, the netting is what they do and kill. What is happening in the world, it's given here, with millions of birds illegally killed each year, millions of birds, right? Working to protect them can seem like an overwhelming battle. That's when inspirational, heartwarming success stories are needed. We hear firsthand accounts from conservation's frontline in Malta, Hungary, and Lebanon. So when journalist David Guttenfeider covered the slaughter of songbirds in the Mediterranean for National Geographic in 2013, he said it was like covering a war. Every year, over 25 million birds are illegally killed as they fly in waves from Northern Europe over the Mediterranean and the Caucasus. Now you can see the magnitude of the issue. So we are very, very lucky that we don't have any of that type of slaughtering or killing. And that slaughtering was done actually for food. Now, so then it is a matter of questioning, right? 25 million birds are caught in mist nets, and they use lures, that is sound, to attract them to it. and then they have parties, they barbecue these things and eat it. Some of it is done for fun, but some of it is done actually for food. There is this other very interesting story with the kestrel in India, where it has now become a tourist industry. Earlier, again, the Nawami kestrel, which was flying across from Mongolian side through India to Africa, so not actually coming down from north to south in that way and going back, and they used to come and settle down in a village in North India in thousands, and they were, of course, in the past killing them for food. But then when it was recognized, there was a movement and changed, and now there is a regular, of course, not with the COVID, but it developed into a regular bird tourism program where people go there to see this huge number of, like flies, apparently they say, that moves across the sky and settles down in that village, and just for 2-3 weeks, and then they are gone. So you see, the damages are there, the problems are there, but we need to see how we can change the situations for the future. The birds are at risk. You see, traditionally they have been moving now, so people also may have had ways of living with them. It all depends on their success stories in the breeding also. Right, I think more and more questions are coming, so we need to also break down the situation. There is an interesting question which I will just touch on, and also, is there a solar power project going to be started on Delphi Island by a Chinese company, and will that have an impact on the migration of the birds? These are all being checked. We are monitoring, or at least we first do the impact assessments and background things of any of the development projects. We did it with the wind power in Mana, and we are going to be doing it with Ponarine and any other place. There is a cover. But you have to also realize that the technology is changing very fast, and the prevention technology of any bird strikes by the windmills are changing even faster. And we are now looking at what is called vertical windmills rather than horizontal windmills. So these are all new development techniques that are coming with response to some of the things that are happening. So be assured that we are not going to be in a predicament of the Alcatraz windmill situation, which everybody quotes, which was done wrongly many years ago in US. So the things are not the same. We don't have the windmills that we used to have, which we got from China, which is whirling around and giving a sound all over. Those days are gone, right? So please don't look at technology in the historical context only. Please look at technology in the present context, and also look at a very fundamental fact. You know, you have a choice between what is bad and what is good. So that's why I say technology is the problem, technology is the solution. So you have to think differently so that you can look at it. Look at smartphones. Is it the best thing for the society? Right? But without the smartphone, who is living today? Right? We are creating a social fabric of loneliness being a major social problem, and everybody is now running around with a smartphone. But think of without the smartphone. Now, some people don't even know that there was a society called society without a smartphone, right? So that is going to happen. So we have to have faith in the system as much as care of the system. Right, I think that is a good point to conclude, because the new generation, which is called the alpha generation, and then we don't know what they will call the next generation, is gradually becoming more techno savvy, that is techno users, and therefore they also need to be thinking of ensuring that that use is not going to destroy the fabric of society. Change, yes, it will happen, not destroy. Don't allow the technology to destroy the fabric of society, but change is definitely going to come, because we are going to be using technology. Now we are talking through Zoom. This is technology. Imagine if we did not have this mechanism, we would have been stuck at home, not knowing what to do. At least we watch a television. At least we have some satisfaction of enjoyment at home, thanks for technology. So it is good and bad, but let's make it good. So thank you very much. I think all of these things are concerns. There is another question, but yeah, these are all being looked at. There is not going to be anything that is going to be disastrous as such. It all depends on our demands. So thank you very much for the attendance. We will log out now, Malaka, and hopefully we will meet again next month, and we will have more information for you. Then we will think about it. We always pray and stay safe. We all want to come to meet and see each other rather than see faces through electronic media.
Okay. So I'll end the session. Bye. Thank you everyone for joining.